The twin suns were setting over the red plains of Orin 5, a small frontier world where humans and aliens lived in uneasy peace. The air smelled of dust and burned fuel, and the sound of engines echoed across the valley as traders and miners ended their day's work. In a quiet corner of the settlement, a young human boy named Ethan sat on a rusted water tank, watching the fading light paint the sky in gold and purple. He was 12 years old, thin from hard work, and his hands were always covered in oil from fixing machines at his father's workshop. Below him, a group of traders walked by, pulling a small group of alien slaves behind them. Most people looked away. It was normal here. The aliens were workers, servants, and sometimes even sold as property. But Ethan never liked it. He didn't understand why anyone had to be treated that way. His father always told him, "That's the way of the frontier, son. Don't get yourself in trouble over things you can't change." But Ethan had a heart that refused to stay silent. That evening, as the traders stopped near the water station, Ethan noticed one of the slaves was a small alien girl around his age. She had long silver-white hair that fell over her face and pale skin that looked almost soft, like starlight itself. Her big violet eyes were tired and scared. She wore a simple gray cloth around her shoulders and moved quietly, carrying a metal box that looked too heavy for her small arms. Ethan couldn't stop watching her. Something about her sadness made him want to do something, anything, to make it better. When the traders went inside the tavern for drinks, leaving their slaves tied near the fence, Ethan climbed down quietly. He walked toward the girl and crouched beside her. She looked up in fear, expecting to be punished, but his voice was gentle. "Hey, are you okay?" he whispered. She didn't answer at first. Her lips trembled. Then she said softly, "You should not talk to me. They will hurt you." Ethan shook his head. "I don't care. You look hungry. Here." He pulled out a small piece of bread from his pocket and handed it to her. She hesitated, then took it slowly, as if she wasn't sure if she was allowed to. Her eyes filled with tears after the first bite. "Thank you," she said in a small voice. "What's your name?" Ethan asked. "Lyra," she replied. "I am Ilari," he nodded. "I'm Ethan. My dad says Ilari used to live in the clouds before the war. Is that true?" Lyra smiled faintly. "Yes, we lived in cities that floated in the air. We could see the stars from our windows. I remember them before." Her voice trailed off and she looked down. Ethan didn't push her to say more. Instead, he sat there for a while listening to the night wind. Then quietly he said, "I wish I could take you away from here." Lyra looked at him with surprise. "You cannot. I am owned." "I don't care," he said stubbornly. "One day when I'm older, I'll come find you. I'll buy your freedom, or steal it if I have to." She laughed softly, though there was sadness in her laughter. "Humans always say things they cannot do." Ethan frowned. "I mean it. I promise. When we grow up, I'll find you, Lyra, and I'll marry you so no one can ever hurt you again." Her eyes widened. "Marry, but humans and Ilari cannot—" "Who says?" he interrupted. "It doesn't matter what anyone says." Lyra stared at him as if she didn't know whether to believe him or not. Then slowly she nodded. "I will remember," she whispered. "If I am still alive when you are grown, I will find you." Ethan smiled. He took an old metal bolt from his pocket, the kind used for engine panels, and twisted it into a ring shape using his pliers. It wasn't perfect, but it was something. He placed it in her hand. "Then keep this. It's our promise." Before she could say another word, loud voices came from the tavern. The traders were returning. Ethan quickly backed away into the shadows. Lyra hid the small ring under her cloth, pressing it close to her heart. When she looked up again, Ethan was gone, but the memory of his kindness stayed. The next morning, the trader's ship took off. Lyra was gone. Ethan stood in the dust watching the sky until the last shimmer of light disappeared. He didn't cry. He just clenched his fists and whispered, "I'll find you someday." I swear, years passed. The world changed, and so did Ethan. He grew into a tall, quiet man with steady hands and a mind sharp as steel. After his father's death, he joined the Terran Frontier Corps, a group of engineers and pilots who repaired ships, built colonies, and sometimes defended them from pirates and raiders. He became known as the man who never broke his word. But even as he traveled from one planet to another, fixing machines and building new lives for others, he never forgot the little Ilari girl from Orin 5. He still carried the memory of her smile and the sound of her voice. Around his neck hung a chain, and on it, the same old metal ring he had made for her long ago. He didn't tell anyone about her. Not his crew, not his commander, not even his closest friends. To them, he was just Ethan Cross, a loyal mechanic with a quiet past. But every night, when the stars were bright, he would take out the ring and whisper, "I wonder if you kept your promise too." One day, his team received a distress signal from a broken freighter near the outer rim. The ship had been attacked by raiders and was drifting near a plasma storm. Ethan and his crew boarded the wreck, searching for survivors. Most of the passengers were missing, but deep inside one of the cargo holds they found something unexpected, a single escape pod that had failed to launch. Inside it was a woman, unconscious and wounded. She was Ailari. Her long white hair was tangled and her wrists were marked with old scars. Her breathing was shallow and her clothes were torn, but even through the dirt and exhaustion there was something noble about her. Ethan's heart stopped when he saw her face. It couldn't be. It had been over 10 years since that day on Orin 5. But the moment he saw those violet eyes flutter open, he knew. It was Lyra. He froze, unable to move. The crew medic started working on her injuries, but Ethan just stared, his mind spinning between disbelief and memory. When she opened her eyes fully, they focused on him. There was a flicker of recognition. "Ethan?" she whispered weakly. He felt his chest tighten. "Lyra, it's me." Tears filled her eyes as she reached toward him. Her fingers brushed the ring hanging around his neck. "You still have it," she said softly. "I never took it off," he replied. "I looked for you, but I thought you were gone." Her lips trembled. "I was gone. For a long time." They brought her back to their ship, the Silver Dawn. She needed rest, and the medic insisted she remain under care. But Ethan stayed near her room, unable to leave. When she finally woke again, she looked at him with a strange sadness. "You grew up," she said quietly. "So did you," he replied. "But you're different. You look strong." Lyra gave a small, tired smile. "I had to be strong. The universe is not kind to those who are weak." He sat beside her, listening as she told him pieces of her story. She had been sold to a merchant who worked for the Varn Dominion, a cruel empire expanding across the stars. When their fleet invaded her home system, she was forced to work as a translator. Years later, she escaped, but the Dominion branded her as a traitor. She had been running ever since. Ethan clenched his fists. "They used you. They hurt you." She looked away. "I survived." "That is enough." He didn't argue. He only said, "You don't have to run anymore. You're safe here," but she shook her head. "No, Ethan, I am never safe."
"They will come for me."
"And they will kill anyone who helps me." He smiled faintly. "Then they'll have to go through me first." For the first time in years, Lyra laughed, softly, like the sound of wind through glass. "You still talk like the boy who made a promise." "And I still mean it," he said quietly. There was silence between them after that, the kind of silence that felt full rather than empty. Lyra watched him, seeing in his face the same kindness she had known long ago, but now mixed with a man's strength and quiet courage. She wanted to tell him everything, to tell him what it meant to survive in chains, to dream of a promise made under alien skies, but words felt too small. That night, when everyone slept, Lyra stood at the window of the ship, looking out at the stars. Ethan approached her quietly. "Can't sleep?" he asked. She shook her head. "I was thinking about that night on Orin 5, he smiled. "Me too," Lyra turned to him. "When you gave me that ring, I thought it was just a dream. Something a kind boy said to comfort a frightened girl. But I carried it with me for years, even when they took everything else. I kept it hidden, even when I thought I would die. It reminded me that somewhere out there was someone who saw me as more than a slave." Ethan's voice was low. "I never forgot you, Lyra. I told myself that if the stars ever brought us back together, I wouldn't waste the chance again." She looked at him, her eyes shining with tears that didn't fall. "And now we are together." "Yeah," he said softly. "But this time, I won't let you go." Outside the window, a faint light appeared in the distance, one that neither of them noticed yet. A Dominion scout ship had picked up the faint trace of their signal. But for that moment, on the quiet deck of the Silver Dawn, they stood side by side. Two souls who had crossed time, pain, and stars to find each other again. Neither of them knew what was coming next, but both understood one thing clearly. Some promises are strong enough to survive even the cold of space. The twin suns had long set behind the horizon, leaving Orn 5's dusty plains bathed in a cold silver light. But Ethan and Lyra were far from the red world now, floating in the safety of the silver dawn. The stars stretched endlessly before them, silent witnesses to a promise that had taken years to fulfill. Yet, despite the calm of space, both of them sensed danger. Lyra's past wasn't done with her, and the Dominion, the cruel empire that had once enslaved her, would not forgive escape so easily. For days, Ethan worked with the ship's systems, repairing minor damage from their journey and keeping watch over Lyra as she slowly regained strength. Her violet eyes, once wide with fear, now held determination. "I should not have survived," she said one evening as she stared at the stars from the observation deck. "The Dominion, they hunt anyone like me, but I had to escape. I had to survive for my people." Ethan sat beside her, his hand brushing hers. "Then we'll make sure you never have to run again. I won't let them take you back." She looked at him with a faint smile. "You said the same thing when we were children, Ethan, but it is different now. I am not a child. The universe is bigger, stronger, and crueler. And so are we," he replied. "We will face it together." The first sign of trouble came in the form of a faint blip on the navigation screen. The ship's sensors picked up a Dominion scout vessel approaching at high speed. It was small but fast, designed to capture fugitives before they could reach safer sectors. Ethan's heart tightened, but his hands moved steadily over the controls. "They've found us," he said. "We need to move fast." Lyra stood beside him, her long hair flowing like silver against the cockpit lights. "They won't take me again," she said calmly. "I've learned how to fight, and you'll see, I am no longer a frightened girl." Ethan nodded. "I know." The scout ship opened fire before they could react. Plasma bolts streaked across the void, narrowly missing the Silver Dawn. Ethan maneuvered the ship through an asteroid field, twisting and banking, using the rocks for cover. Lyra assisted, tapping on the targeting systems to identify weak points in the Dominion's hull. Even with years of separation, the trust and understanding between them felt natural, as if no time had passed at all. The fight was tense. Each movement of the ship was precise, every decision critical. Ethan's hands ached from constant adjustment, and Lyra's voice guided him through every maneuver. After what felt like hours, they managed to shake the scout vessel, leaving it tangled among asteroids. They could not stop yet. The Dominion would send reinforcements, but for a brief moment, the stars seemed to calm around them. "That was too close," Ethan muttered, breathing heavily. Lyra placed a hand on his shoulder. "You did well. We survived because you never gave up, even as a boy. That strength. It is human." Ethan looked at her, noticing the subtle changes in her features, the sharpness of her jaw, the intensity in her eyes, the way her shoulders held herself as if she had carried worlds on them. "You've changed too," he said softly. "Stronger, braver. You survived more than I ever could have imagined." She smiled faintly, but there was pain behind it. "Survival is not enough. I need to end this. The Dominion cannot continue to enslave my people. If we do not act, more will suffer." Ethan nodded. "Then we fight together. Not just for you, but for everyone they threaten. Humanity doesn't give up, and neither do I." Over the next few days, they plotted their next move. Lyra revealed the locations of Dominion supply lines and small outposts that could be attacked with precise strikes. The data she carried was crucial. It could cripple a part of the Dominion's expansion. But to deliver it, they would need to get close to one of the Empire's command stations deep in hostile space. The journey was tense. Each jump through hyperspace brought them closer to danger. Ethan noticed the way Lyra's hands sometimes trembled when she recounted her memories of being chained and forced to work for the Dominion. He didn't ask questions. He knew words could not capture that pain. Instead, he offered silence, presence, and quiet reassurance. One evening, as they neared the outer rim of the Dominion sector, the ship's alarms blared. A fleet of Dominion vessels had detected them. Ethan's eyes narrowed. "We have to fight our way through." "There's no other choice," Lyra nodded. "I am ready." The battle began in earnest. Plasma beams lit up the void like streaks of fire. The Silver Dawn dodged and weaved, smaller Dominion fighters darting around them like angry hornets. Ethan piloted with precision, every maneuver showing the skill of a lifetime spent learning to survive. Lyra used the ship's weapon systems to target engines and shields, disabling enemy vessels without destroying lives unnecessarily. Even in the midst of combat, her calm, thoughtful nature guided every action. As the Dominion ships closed in, Ethan realized that brute force alone would not win this fight. He took a calculated risk, using the Silver Dawn's experimental cloaking system to slip through a dense asteroid belt. The Dominion fighters, overconfident, followed blindly. One by one, they were disabled or forced to retreat. After the battle, the silence of space felt heavy but victorious. They had survived against overwhelming odds. Ethan exhaled, his body stiff from tension. "We made it," he said quietly. Lyra looked at him, her violet eyes softening. "You did not just survive, you saved me." As always, Ethan shook his head. "We saved each other. I promised you long ago that I would find you. I never thought it would come to this." "Fighting fleets across the stars?" She smiled, a true smile this time, without fear or sadness. "And yet, here we are. The promise remains. You are human, Ethan, and humanity never gives up." Days later, they reached a remote outpost of the Terran Alliance where Ethan delivered Lyra's data. Commanders and strategists reviewed the information and confirmed it would prevent a Dominion invasion of several frontier colonies. The achievement was celebrated, but Ethan paid little attention to the accolades. His focus was on Lyra, who now stood fully restored, free from the chains of her past and respected for her courage. As the celebration quieted, Lyra approached him. "Ethan," she said softly, holding out the small ring he had given her as a child. It was worn, but now it glimmered faintly with Alari crystal energy. "I kept it even after all this time. It reminded me of hope, and the promise of a future." He took it in his hands, his heart swelling with emotion. "I never forgot you, Lyra. Never." She looked into his eyes, her violet gaze filled with the strength of someone who had survived, endured, and conquered her past. "Then let us not forget now. Our promise, it is real, and I choose to keep it." Ethan smiled, tears threatening to fall. "Then we are together. No one can take that from us." They stood side by side, hands intertwined, knowing that the stars had tested them, that the universe had tried to pull them apart. But the bond formed in childhood had endured every trial. Their love was not born of fantasy, but of courage, loyalty, and unbroken promise. But life in the frontier was never without challenge. Lyra would help rebuild her people's homeworlds, ensuring no one would be enslaved again, and Ethan would continue his work with the Terran Frontier Corps, using his skills to protect the weak and stand against injustice. Together they would travel to distant systems, fighting not for glory but to ensure that freedom, kindness, and humanity thrived wherever darkness threatened. And in the quiet moments, when the ship floated silently among the stars, they would remember the dusty plains of Orrin 5. The day a boy gave a girl a simple metal ring, and the promise that had survived a lifetime in the vastness of space. They had kept that promise, and nothing, not even empires or stars, could break it. For Ethan and Lyra, the universe was wide, full of danger and wonder, but they were no longer alone. Together they had learned the greatest truth: courage, hope, and a promise can endure across time and space. And humanity's strength lies not in power or weapons, but in keeping faith when all else seems lost. As the twin suns rose again over distant planets, their light touched the silver dawn. Ethan looked at Lyra and she smiled. The future was uncertain, the stars vast and unpredictable, but for the first time in years both knew they could face it, together.